Okay, I'm at 27 Smith Street, and this is the house of Diane Gray. And I came over here because she has a installation that's quite old. It went in 1998, so it's one of the older units, and I wanted to take a look at the older unit because I've been looking at the installations and the different units. And one thing that I wanted to point out on this unit is that the overflow pipe is done differently on this unit. Now, this overflow pipe has got a lot of cobwebs in it, and it's got some dust because this is a very old unit. But you'll notice that this overflow pipe is done differently on this unit. There's not a rubber gasket, and the pipe does not extend all the way through. If you actually look down from underneath, you'll see that the pipe runs up into the top cover here, but there's no gasket. It's just what they call a press fit. It's not a watertight fit. And if the water were to back up and it backed up all the way through here, some of that water would actually leak back down into this accessway. And that's unfortunate because that's a possible failure on this type of pump. Because the older pump, like this one, has the breather tube, which is this piece right here. It's got that. It actually is air comes into that, so that's not watertight. And if the water level in here were to rise up and hit the breather tube, that can cause a problem in the pump. So that's actually one thing I was checking here, because I had heard that the older units, this overflow pipe was not sealed, and I wanted to check that out. But while I'm here, I do notice another thing. That is, if you look carefully at the bottom, you'll see that the 6 bolts are not bolted down. The bolts are in place, but they're not tightened. And this deck is not locked down. This is in the so-called unlocked position. And this is one thing that the service people do occasionally. There's an option. They just leave that open and the pump apparently still runs fine. That's something else to note for it. One thing that Diane actually pointed out is that there's a little sign here, and it reads that this EQD should be supported on both of these hooks. It's actually only being supported on one hook right now. I don't know, that doesn't actually seem like a terrible problem, but I noticed that there is this 2 of these signs on the unit saying that it should be hooked up that way. So that's something that Diane may want to hook up that way, just because we have the top open. Now, another thing that I wanted to show is that if you look at the seal here, where the top would go on, you can see that there's certain places where there's caked on dirt. The gasket, if you look at the gasket actually looks fine. It's a bit dusty or dirty, but since the gasket's been on and off a number of times, dirt has managed to accumulate. Now the gasket is not sealing as well, especially in this area right here. It's not going to seal over that dirt clod. Or it might seal if the gasket is still pliable enough, but that could be a problem. So anyway, we can clean this off and put the top back on, and then Diane should be all set. Diane, is it okay if I ask you about your backup in your basement that you had? Because that was a very interesting thing that happened in this case, and Diane does have a bathroom in her basement. It actually, she has an ejector pump. Is it okay if you go on camera?
If we must.
But we don't have to.
Okay.
You have a bathroom in your basement with the ejector pump.
Yes.
And you also have a sink. That's where your overflow went, and that's where your backup went into.
But the sink is not in the bathroom.
It's not part of the bathroom.
No.
So that ejector pump is probably not pumping whatever comes out from what drains through that sink.
It is not.
Yeah, exactly. That sink comes into here.
Yes.
Now, why don't you just tell us what happened when you had that overflow? What were the circumstances surrounding that?
We had a 3-day power outage, so no water was flushed or used.
Yep.
Because when I have a power outage, all water stops.
Okay.
I don't take any chances.
Could it be possible that one of your toilets might have been running?
I would hear that. I'm pretty
Some toilets can run
with water. I know a
and
little
it can
teeny
be.
bit.
It can actually even be silent. Now, one thing I was going to say to people is that during a power outage, where you want to conserve your water is, and you're not going to be using the toilets, or you're going to be using them sparingly,
Yes.
you could actually turn off the water to the toilet, because there's a shut-off valve at
Have you
the
ever
toilet.
turned that off when it's not been used? All of a sudden it drips and you got to call a plumber.
Now, that is a problem
Stop.
in a grinder pump house, because normally those are just left on, and if you do use them regularly, they'll stay in good
And if you
repair.
don't,
But if you
they
don't,
don't.
you'll get corrosion, and you're absolutely right, they will leak.
Then they'll start to
And that
drip.
means that there's actually no way to turn off the water to your toilet.
Right, exactly.
And in a grinder pump house, you want to be able to control all of the water in your house. It's just nice to have. So, because I read recently that you can have a silent leak in a toilet, and it could actually leak as much as a gallon per hour.
Wow.
And one day, that would be 24 gallons. That would use up all of. That would bring you from your operating level in your pump up to the alarm level.
Right.
And then in another day, you'd go right up to the top. And you could have a backup if the power was out long enough, if you had a leak that large.
Right.
Now, that might have just been something they put in the magazine.
Because there was no water in here.
Yeah,
so,
no water in here, yeah.
So I'm thinking,
Yeah.
they really didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
So they filled the pump with a hose, my outside
Yeah.
hose. They
Yeah.
filled it up,
Yeah.
and it ejected immediately.
Right.
So they said the pump was fine. Possibly there was a backup, in the pipes in the house.
Right, the pipe. That would be a logical explanation.
Yep.
And
then when it ejected, it pulled the little clog out.
yeah,
That was all they could, figure.
yeah,
But no alarm went off. There
Right.
wasn't water in here at all.
yep. Well, one
So-
reason why I'm collecting that story is because it sounds slightly familiar to a story that I might have heard at another house. And sometimes when you see a pattern, then you can actually try to connect the dots as to
Yeah.
what's actually happening. Yeah, so that's just a mystery. Nobody knows what happened
Yeah.
there.
But it worked, so who cared?
Okay, great, exactly. Okay, thanks a lot, Diane.
You're welcome.